5?
This could probably be classified another ghost card. There is two. There is two on the pop report, and they're both in SGC holders. Um, this is from the D381 set, and they made two advertisers. They had made Ferguson Bakery, and then they had the Fleischmann Bakery. And
I see a
the
lot more
only
Fleischmann's.
yeah, the Fleischmanns were there was a lot more Fleischmann than Ferguson. This is the one that we talked about last week. That if you wanted to clip off the coupon, which this one doesn't have, this is the coupon that you would need to turn in to have the 23-inch pennants that are so expensive and rare now.
Yeah.
Because the card itself was tough. It's got the same photos from the same set that Fleischmann had, the Underwood and Underwood photography. And they're completely different pictures than from the Ferguson Bakery felts. But they're a lot tougher than the Fleischmann Bakery. My Fleischmann looks exactly the same, except for the Ferguson Bakery has one line. It'll say Joe Wood, Boston. What does it say? Boston American. And on the Fleischmann Bakery, before it gets into the coupon, it has two lines, and it'll say Joe Wood, Boston American. That's really the only way that you can tell the difference in the cards.
Now, would you want the one with the coupon or non-coupon? Does it matter?
To me, it wouldn't matter. I mean, realistically, I would like to have the one with coupon, just for the fact that I have the Fleischmann Bakery, one of two that have the coupon on it. So, I mean, it would be nice, but I would take this card in a heartbeat right here.
Well, think about the coupon for this card, because it actually makes the card more attractive. I think it actually enhances the look. Like I was putting together for a little bit, and I probably have about a third of the set, the 50 Hires Root Beer set.
Yeah.
And they have a coupon, or they have like a stub on those cards. And to me, it makes those cards super ugly. When
Yeah.
that, they don't look like a card. They look like I don't know, like an advertising piece. So to me, like, that takes away from those cards' attractiveness. Plus, you have to have it in a ginormous holder,
Yeah.
because those tabs are so long. Where these tabs or these don't really make it. These coupons don't really
No,
make the card
I
like that.
kind of classify the tabs on these kind of like Red Man Tobacco.
Yeah.
They really don't add a lot to it. But to me, a Red Man Tobacco without the tab doesn't look right to me.
Yeah, to me, I agree too. That's a really underrated set too. That Red Man Tobacco set really
I
has
agree.
gone down in popularity, because
I
it
think
has
they're
a lot of
beautiful.
great players.
Yeah, and they're just beautiful cards.
Yeah, I don't know why it's gone down. Maybe because of just the weird size that people don't, love it as much as I think it's gone down in popularity. You don't see them very often, and then
Yeah.
when you do, like, the prices seem to be really low compared to what I think they should be. Like, there's like Stan Musial has a lot of cool cards in that set.
Yeah. But the Red Man would fit in a holder, this same size holder that this Joe Wood Ferguson Bakery's in. So
Yeah,
I mean,
I don't know.
I think the bigger cards are coming around. I mean, I really do, especially
Well,
for
I think
wood.
well, I think some of those, especially the 52 Redmans, are really, really awesome cards.
Yeah, they're just so colorful.
Yeah. Now, on my number 5, so I kind of cheated here because um, I'm going to talk about kind of Ken Griffey Jr. refractors. So, for people who may not be on my channel, as a Griffey collector, there's 194 unique Ken Griffey Jr. I think 100 or 134. I think it's 134. I'm sorry. Unique Ken Griffey Jr. card refractors in the 90s, and I'm getting close to having 100 unique Griffey refractors in my collection. So all I'm missing now is basically the tougher ones, the ones that are either super short printed, like there's a couple number out of 5. But in general, in the Griffey world, just like we talked about with that established card, um, anything numbered 100 or below puts it into that upper tier. Now, not every card will be that God tier, the S tier type card, but a lot of them are, because they're hard to get. They're not low numbered. The card I have shown here, the 1998 Bowman's Best Atomic, would fall into that God tier. Like, it's a super popular card. It's number out of 100, and people just go nuts for this card. Even if you're not a Griffey collector, this is a set that a lot of 90s guys love. So to get to that final, 130 plus Griffey cards I need, I got to get these really low numbered refractors. So I'm at like 94 or 90. I'm at actually 95 total Ken Griffey Jr. refractors right now. So I'm going to hit 100 this year, because there's still a few that are on the easier side to get. Not every one of them is these super low pop. I did pick up one this year that is numbered to 70 out of 99 Finest. So I did pick up one Griffey this year that is low numbered, but I want to pick up another one. And this is kind of the list of the ones here. So if I was going to go through this list and tell you the most expensive one on this list or the hardest one to get, that, the number to 25, obviously they're lower numbered, but that mirror image atomic refractor from 98 Bowman's Best is probably the most popular of the really low numbered ones. The Finest Team Red, the Finest Team Gold, the Bowman Chrome Gold, they're low numbered, but that 98 Bowman's Best mirror image atomic out of 25 is a God tier card. So it would go for 5 figures, right? It's 10,000 plus for that card. For the next tier down is going to be the 98 Finest, the Man Refractor of Ken Griffey Jr. It's numbered to 75. Again, probably $7,000 to $10,000 for that card right now. For that 98, the Man Refractor. The Man Refractors have hit a certain tier that's well above other refractors for the 90s. Outside of, they're probably the second most popular refractor outside of the I'd probably say it's going to go 97 embossed refractor, which isn't even on my list yet. That is the God tier. It's the number one refractor, the embossed refractor golds. Then it's kind of a toss up between the mirror image atomic and the Man, but they're really close. Even though there's 3 times as many of the Man refractors, they've just became this thing where they're just really hard to find, and people just pay a ton for them. Now, if you look at the card itself, it's got it's almost like the established. It's got a rainbow kind of pattern to it. It's really deep refractor. They don't make them like that anymore, so it's very attractive. So it's a really attractive card, numbered to 75. I would say if I was going to guess which one I could probably get off this list the easiest, the 99 Sterling Gold out of 100. There's been a few that's been sold in the last couple months, probably the last 6 months, 2 or 3. And it's a card that pops up on eBay every now and then. There's 3 golds in that set. So there's a base gold, a gems gold, a sterling gold. So there's a couple subsets of Griffey in that set. And so the sterling gold, to me, because there's 3 of them, it just kind of detracts from, they're not as popular. If there was just one gold card in that whole set, I think that would make that card a lot more popular. But it's 3, and that kind of cuts the value a little bit. So if I was going to guess, it's probably going to be the 99 Finest Sterling Gold is the one I will probably most likely pick up, just because of the availability and just how it's not quite as popular. So one comes up, I'm not going to have to, fight as many Griffey collectors to get it.
So do you think that not only the numbers, the low population of these and their numbered cards, but the beauty is also what's driving it, and then the combination of the two, makes one set more popular than the other, even though they may have the same count?
Yeah, 100%. It's really the
Okay.
attractiveness of the card, along with, and sometimes too, it's kind of run on the bank. You know, all of a sudden you'll get a new collector come into the hobby, or um, a couple of people really overpay for one of these cards, and all of a sudden it's like, oh, this card's now worth 10,000, whereas last year it was worth 3,000, and then you'll see like kind of like people rushing to get the card because now they're scared they'll never get it.
Yeah.
So that happens sometimes with the Griffey cards. You'll see a kind of run on the bank, where people just want the card because they think they're never going to get it. So there's just a lot of people who collect Griffey, and I think you know it's just it's a not only is it just the attractiveness of the card, but it's a lot of competition.
Yeah. So it's really not too much different than, like you said, pre-war, where
Yeah,
if it's low population, you kind of set your own you kind of set your own market prices by
yeah.
what you pay for it.
Well, it's funny, like like I know the pricing okay. My buddy Dwayne, who does a lot of cards, and in fact he sold me the one that I just bought, numbered out of 70. Um, and then a lot of times, like we'll be talking about grades, and I'm like, oh, this will go for like 10 or 12. He's like, oh no, this is going to go 15 plus. Because he's just like, I've talked to the Griffey guys, and they all, they're all like, there's guys out there with minimum bids of 15 for this card. I'm like, oh wow, it's too much for me.
Right.
So that collecting base is very tight, and they all are very competitive. So these
Yeah.
kind of cards are really hard to get because of that. Not only availability, but a lot of people want them.
So it sounds like it's really close to the Jordan market.
Yeah, it is.
In
It's
Jordan?
probably number two. Like if you look at the '90s players, Griffey's definitely, I would think, number two. You got Jordan collectors and you got Griffey collectors.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, I'm in that second tier. I'm not as comfortable being there because it creates a lot of situations where you're like, how much do I have to overpay just to get this card?
Gotcha.
All right.
Okay,
For
so
Doug, number four.
this one looks very familiar. I've owned this card at least 3 times. And, I buy it because I really, really like the card, but once I get it in hand, it starts wearing on me, if the condition isn't like and the eye appeal is not there. So, I have a tendency to, move it on and, reinvest in something. I shouldn't say reinvest, but I mean, reinvest my money into other, cards that I deem that I like more. So, I'm going to be very patient on this card. I know there's no shortage of them. Now there is shortage of lower grades that are very attractive,
Yeah.
and there are certain things that I'm looking for on this card, and I'm just going to have to be very patient with it. But
Well, I think too, Doug, this might be one of those cards where you would almost say that you may have to look for a higher grade, right?
right. Well, I mean, there is a collector here on YouTube who has I seen his card. It's an SGC3. I think it's absolutely gorgeous card, and I'm not sure what he paid for it. And I'm sure that as attractive and high end as it looks, that it may or may not have some damage on the back.
Yeah.
Um, but some of these come out of scrapbooks, and the backs are awful. But
Yeah.
some people don't really care about the backs.
Yeah.
Other ones come out and they may have the slightest little dot on the back, which would not bother me a bit.
Yeah.
As long as the front is something that I can live with and it's attractive. Because of all the Matheson cards that I've owned, this one I think I would keep if I could find it in the eye appeal and the attractiveness that I want, because it's one of my favorites.
Yeah. No, I understand because I've had a lot of T205s. I've had a
Yeah.
Cobb, I've had a Cy Young, I got the Bender. And I agree because the chipping on the cards is really noticeable. And then
Right.
sometimes you get discoloration, like the gold will turn like a, well, I don't call it like a brownish. It turns a weird color.
Yeah, it turns almost green.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So to me, it's like, yeah, there's a lot of condition issues, and if you can stay away from that condition issue,
Right.
because to me, it's one of my favorite Thai Cobb cards. Honestly, like I love the Cobb.
Yeah. The Cobb has a lot more decoration than because it's, American League instead of
Yeah.
National League. But, yeah, I really like the Cobb also.
Let's see. So my number four, this is a little bit of a again another cheat, but getting one of these really rare back benders will be a lot of fun this year for me if I can find one.
Yeah.
Um, you know, I'm not as big into, like, let's say, like a Sovereign 460, where it's just the factory number being different,
Yeah.
or like a Hindu red versus a Hindu black or something like that, or brown. Just because, like, oh, they're different color ink. To me, it's like I would love a drum or an Uzit or a Carolina Brights. Like something that has a completely different look to it,
Yeah.
versus just a slight variation. But we'll see. I mean, obviously, the problem with these backs is two things. One is, yeah, the advanced collectors. This is where they're playing, but then you got to deal with the type collectors.
Yes.
And a lot of times the type collectors love to pick up the Hall of Famers. And Bender is one of the cheaper Hall of Famers from the T206 set, where you could pick up like a drum or a Carolina Brights back and not have to pay a huge premium like you would for a Cy Young or a Mathewson or one of
Right.
the top tier Hall of Famers. And that's why I see happening a lot of times is I'll get outbid on these rare backs because it's a back collector guy, but he's wanting all Hall of Famers, but he doesn't want to pay the premium for the big guy, so he's buying
Yeah.
the
Right. He doesn't want the
tinker.
top tier. Yeah. You're already paying premium for the back. They don't want to pay premium for the back and then a top tier Hall of Famer on top
Yeah,
of it.
so they're buying kind of like the guys who just kind of like are Hall of Famers, but they're not as popular. And I think that's what I run into a little bit with getting these kind of really rare backs. But I think I could pull one off. I think you know like American Beauty. I think I could get an American Beauty.
I like the American Beauty. The only problem there is every American Beauty I've ever seen, because of the way they're made, they have narrow borders because they're
Yeah,
actually a little bit smaller to fit in the American Beauty packs.
yeah, they're like
So to
what
me, they all
T213.
look like they're trimmed,
Yeah,
even though
like
I
like
know they're
like the
they're not.
yeah, like what, like the like the T213 set, or um
Right.
like they have the narrow borders. Yeah, um that's the thing I like about with Bender being in the T206 set, that it creates that kind of like opportunity to have the rare back journey and Odyssey. But it also gets annoying because you're not just competing with Bender collectors, you're competing with
Type
the rare
set.
back collectors, the type collectors, and so it just gets a little bit more expensive.
On one hand, I always say to myself, I wish that Joe Wood was in the T206 set. But like when you bring this kind of information up, I'm kind of glad he's not.
Yeah, I mean, it drives you crazy a little bit because I look at my T206 Benders I already have. I mean, I've got Sovereigns, I've got Cycles, I've got Polar Bears, but then you get into these like really rare ones, and then they just become, Ghost. And then
Yeah.
when one pops up, all of a sudden you're competing against all these people to
Yes.
try to get it.
Yeah, there's so
So
many
just,
T206 collectors.
yeah, it's it's
Crazy.
it's the monster. I mean, it's
Yeah.
the most collected pre-war set of all time. So you're
Yeah.
going to hit lots of folks competing in this set. So, but I think I can pull one off, and I think the American Beauty would be the one I would probably be most likely to pull off.
Right.
So on to Doug's number three. I love this one.
I do too. So this was a project that I have the Joe Wood in the SGC5. I like the looks of T207 cards a lot, and I like the looks of them where they fall in between the 3 and 5 range. I inherently those in that grade range are very attractive to me. Now, I'm not saying that there isn't some 1s and 2s out there that aren't
Yeah.
as attractive, but they are tougher to find.
Yeah.
So I wanted there's 18 cards in the Boston Red Sox team set, and it's got about 5 Hall of Famers in it. So, you got Tris Speaker, you got Ed Seacott, you got Heine Wagner, you have Harry Hooper, and then of course you got Joe Wood, who's not a Hall of Famer, but he's a top tier player, and very recognizable. So
Yeah. His
and then
card in
this
the
was,
REA auction is going pretty good, pretty high.
yeah, and then the this is the year that 1912 that the Red Sox beat the Giants in the World Series, and this was the year that Joe Wood dominated the whole season. He went 34-5 with a 1.9 ERA, won 3 of the 4 games in the World Series, won 16 games straight in the season.
Wow.
I mean, just a dominant year. And it all took place in 1912. And then 1912 also holds another big key event, and that was the opening of the new park. So I just like all the history that's involved with the T207, the Boston Red Sox, and the 1912 season. And so I thought it would be just the perfect project for me to work on.
Well, I agree that these cards look amazing when you see them all together like this. Also, the T207 set is definitely not as appreciated of all the sets, and obviously there's no Ty Cobb, there is no Honus Wagner, so it does detract. I don't even think there's a Cy Young. There's a Walter Johnson. It's kind of the biggest
Walter Johnson,
set, right?
even though Johnson doesn't look like a Walter Johnson, it's not a great representation of it. There's no Mathewson.
Yeah, no Mathewson.
Right.
And the Walter the Johnson looks like he's got lipstick on his face.
Well, a lot of the pre-war cards look that way too.
Yeah, I think on the Johnson
or blush.
Yeah, but like on the Johnson, I think they colored in his lips, and it's weird looking when you see it on the photo, and I think that makes people kind of just a little bit like that's odd looking for that card. But I love the set. There's a Bender in the set, which I have the Bender. I think I actually have 2 copies of the Bender.
Yeah.
But
Bender's
it's a
a
great
card too.
card.
Yeah.
So this will be really fun to see you put this set together, because I think it's very legitimate for you to get this done. Maybe not all in 1 year, but I think you definitely piece together quite a bit of it.
Yeah, I think I could put a big dent in it this year if I concentrate on it. I have 3 of the 18 cards right now, and working on trying to get a few others.
Well, I think the big one is the Tris Speaker, right?
That's correct. Yes, Tris Speaker.
All right, so that's going to be a lot of fun.
And I've had that card twice before. I had a PSA 4, which I should have never got rid of. And then I've had a SGC 3 at one time, and I've let them both loose for. I think I traded one for a Ty Cobb that I really wanted, thinking I can probably get a T207 Tris Speaker again easier than I could the Cobb.
Yeah,
but that was not the right decision. The Cobb,
which Cobb was it?
Wonderful than the T207 speaker.
Do you remember which Cobb you traded for?
Yeah, it was the T202.
Okay.
Hassan triple folder.
Yeah.
So
yeah, what you talking about?
Yeah.
I agree with you. I would have rather had the T207.
Yeah. I just got caught up in Cobb at the time. I was trying to build my Cobb portfolio
Mhm.
or what I thought was a portfolio.
Yeah. Actually, I don't think I have a Todd Cobb card left. I used to have the greenback, and I ended up selling it as
Yeah,
part of.
yeah, that was a nice card too.
Yeah. Oh well, it'll come back one of these days.
It will, yeah.
All right, number 3 for me, T204 Ramley Chief Bender. I've had this card before. The one I had before was very, I think it was a 3.5, which pretty good for the grade, but it had a lot of chipping and missing foil on the front, the gold leaf, on the front. So I want one that has some good front appeal, where it doesn't have a lot of damage to that gold. But so I don't mind if it's a 1 or if it's a 3, but I don't want the front to look like someone took sandpaper to it. They're weird, they're weird shaped in terms of size. So I think that kind of makes it where they were weird to store back probably in the time period they were issued. But from a design perspective, when you see one in hand, how intricate that gold leaf is, they're one of
Yeah,
the
they're
most
very
attractive
artistic.
cards, that was ever made. So I think, if you have a player, if you collect the T204 Ramley set, they're very attractive. So the Bender is a big deal because outside of the T227, the Cracker Jack, probably his third or fourth most attractive card.
Yeah, it's a great card. Yeah, if you ever hold one in hand, this picture does not do it justice. The
Yeah.
gold leaf and then the artistic design of it, and
Mhm.
you got to remember that this came out in 1909, and everything that came out in 1909 or earlier was tobacco or caramel cards, and they were all practically the same size, and this one
Yeah.
was a different size, so it kind of
Yeah.
stood out. And then the artistic design and the gold foil or the gold leaf just makes it a beautiful card and unique.
Yeah, I think it's definitely one of his most attractive cards. I mean, the way I'd rank it is, again, I'd put the Cracker Jack 1, the 2227 2, and this card 3, just from general how I look at the cards. But a lot of people would put this card 1, so I think you'd have an argument that this is the most attractive. I mean, then you got the T3, I mean,
Right.
that's that's the top 5. I mean, if you were to just say, like, in any order, this is a top 5. And it's not, I'm talking about attractiveness. There's probably
Right.
some really rare Benders more expensive, but this is, from a visual appeal, this is definitely a top 5 Chief Bender card that's out there.
Well, if you look at the prices that you have for VCP sales here and then compare the same grades for Walter Johnson, I mean, it's not even fair. I mean,
Yeah.
this is such a bargain.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing
Compared-
too, is like, I think with this card too, you might be able to run into this in a 2 or 3. That's still nice. Probably, sometimes you can get one. I mean, one just sold for 1260 in a PSA 3, and that was
Right.
just 23.
Yeah.
Uh, and then REA had a 3 that sold for less than $1,000.
Yeah.
I mean, that was last year. That's
Yeah.
just kind of like, you could run to one of these cards and and get it at a good price. So it's definitely doable. I think this is one I can definitely put out. I think, if I get one Bender this year, it's probably going to be this card. If I was going to just guess, this would be the one I get.
You just can't rush into it like I do with my T205 Mathewsons. Make sure you buy the right one so you're
Yeah.
happy with it.
Yeah, because the one I had before, I wasn't happy with it. And so when I got rid of it, it was more of like kind of a relief because I didn't have to look at it anymore because I don't like this card. And then, I know it's an important card, but it
Right.
just was ugly. And I
Yeah.
wasn't very happy with it.
Well, you get caught up in the excitement of owning the card for maybe the first time, and
Yeah.
that kind of takes over. And then when you look at it every day, and it becomes less attractive if it's not meeting your eye appeal.
Yeah, for sure. Ooh, all right.
So
We just
here's,
talked about this card a little bit,
yeah,
but
yeah. So this is the bad boy of my T207 Boston set. Luckily, I already have a very nice Joe Wood. I've picked up a few commons. So if I can pick up the Trish Speaker this year, I would be ecstatic. I just have to be sure that I can buy one that I can live with
yeah.
and be able to look at and be very pleased with.
Well, I would say this is that it's a very attractive card.
Yes.
And like we just were talking about the Chief Bender, these prices seem to be reasonable for a card like this.
Oh, yes, I agree. Trish Speaker in general is probably, in my opinion, one of the most underrated top tier Hall of Fame players. I'm not 100% sure why, but if you look at his stats and talk to interviews and Glory Other Times, any of those ball players, they all talked highly, highly, like he was the best outfielder, best center fielder, and he still holds records to this day. I mean, for triples and doubles, and he was probably one of the earliest center fielders to play 30, 40 yards behind second base. And with the crack of the bat, he knew pretty much, how far back to run.
Mm-hmm.
And he was very instrumental in a lot of unique double and triple plays because of where he played so shallow. So he was kind of the predecessor to, guys like Willie Mays.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting to me because he has that card in the 1933 Gaudy set as, from my understanding, it was like a tribute, right? Well, I don't really understand why he was in that set, other than just they wanted to have a card of him in the set because he was pretty much retired well before that set came out, right?
I think he was, yeah, he wasn't even a manager at that point.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, yeah. So,
and I've always heard it as just a tribute, like maybe he,
right.
They just respect him so much they wanted
Yeah,
to
he
have
was
a
well
card.
respected, right? Yeah.
But that card is very expensive comparatively for a retired player.
Right.
It's
kind
so
of like
it just shows you like it's popular, how popular.
Kind of like the 1940 play ball.
Yeah.
They put a lot of earlier players that were non-playing day cards.
Yeah, Joe Jackson, Walter Johnson, that set. I mean, yeah, a lot of players like that.
Yep.
But but that just shows me that but that card is expensive. And then you go to the cards when he was actually in his playing days, and they're cheaper than you would think.
Right. And this is a little tougher card to obtain also. If you look at the pop reports, you would think Trish Speaker would be a top 3 card in the set.
Yeah.
That his pop counts would be up there pretty high. But if you compare him to Johnson,
yep,
and just about any other top tier player, I mean his cards are way down in pop. So I'm thinking it's a short printed card also.
Yeah, I do think though, it's a card that it's sold. Here there was 4 sales of this card in Q4 last year for the most part. So it feels like a card that is available enough that at least you can get a shot.
Right.
So yeah, I think it's a very attractive card. I really, the Bender in this set is kind of a weird looking photo of him. So to me, I think it's like I wish it was more like this. Like a photo of him just like in a posed instead of an action shot,
Yeah.
because it's like hard to put an action shot on a card this small. It's
Yeah,
like,
this is one of my favorite photos of Tris Speaker. I know a lot of people really like the T206, him
mhm,
batting with a nice blue background,
yeah,
and it's also com his rookie card, his first card, well, one of his
okay.
first cards. So, but I like this pose here a lot better.
I like the fact you can see his full uniform. It looks really
Yes,
cool.
yeah.
All right, moving on to my number two. It's Chrissy Mathewson. This is a card I talk a lot about. The T3 Mathewson. I've said it a lot. I mean, just like the E91 Cy Young, it's to me the most attractive Mathewson card ever made. I love the white hat. I love the uniform. I love the NY on his uniform. That you can see the sock, his stirrups. It's like like as much historical. Like this is what they looked like. When they played baseball back in this time period. Mathewson, it just looks cool. Like this card just looks cool. He looks cool. The card is perfect, and how it's made, in my opinion. Very popular card.
Yeah.
But the thing is like in that 1 to 3 grade, it's not impossible from a cost perspective. It's expensive, but if I can find a well centered, and this is a card that I don't care about the corners. It's more about that image,
Yeah.
like I don't want like creases or staining or pinholes around the face. That if that image is clean, then I can handle a 2 or 3.
Yeah. I agree.
And even an authentic that looks really nice. But this is a card that when we went to the National last year, we didn't see a single one. We saw a Cy Young.
Mhm.
No Mathewsons for sale.
No, we seen the one, silk that was,
Yes.
the same pose, but it doesn't compare to this card.
No.
It's a very attractive card, and it's a cool card, but it doesn't attract me like this one does.
And it just goes to that whole thing of it may not be rare comparatively to other cards in the set, but it's really popular. And it's like a card that at a show, there's a lot of people who even dealers. I think it's one of those things where like it's hard to get there early enough to buy it.
Yeah,
You almost have to be first to the table. This card is a card that a lot of people are looking to buy. Again, if it's reasonably priced, you're going to see a lot of people look for it. So this is a card that I think is feasible from a availability, but will it come up for sale? And then will I be in the right time period to afford it or buy it? We'll see. But it's a card that if I do get it, like I said, it's one of those cards where if it's the only card I get on this list, I'd be really happy. This would be a
right.
card I would be like ecstatic to get just knocked off the list and displayed somewhere behind me as a highlight of my collection.
Yeah, and, the T3s are so beautiful, and, what I really like about the T3s is the size. And I
Yes.
know that distracts from some people. It doesn't fit in some people's collections, but as far as a display piece, it's just the perfect size. It complements all the colors, the pastel colors, and just look at the size of it and look at the details that you can see on this card that you can't see on a traditional T206 card. I mean, look at his you can see his shoes. You can see what kind of
Yeah.
shoe he wore then, what the stockings look like, what their shoelaces look like, the glove.
Yeah.
I mean, and it's really hard to see that on a T206 tobacco
Yeah.
card.
No, it's just it's a set that I think you mentioned bigger cards getting more popular, and becoming more collectible. You know, I've seen people with T3s that display them on the wall, like they hang them up as almost like art.
Yeah,
Like portraits. And I just feel like this set's going to be one of those sets that always is got tremendous
Yeah,
eye
demand.
appeal and desirability amongst collectors.
Yeah.
All right, moving on to number one for Doug. So here we go.
Okay. I've always been intrigued with this card. Um, and then another thing that really intrigues me about this, you can get a nice copy like this SGC4 here. I mean,
Yeah.
it's well centered. It doesn't have any scuffing. I mean, it's just a beautiful, gorgeous picture. It is the exact same portrait picture that is on the T206.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just a great representation of a Wagner card. And then what I really like about it is it's probably half the price of any caramel card that's out there. And I just like the looks of it. It's a unique card.
Yeah,
I would like to have it in my collection.
it surprised me. It was like this card showed up on your list, but I also agree. It's of its time. It looks old, but it looks attractive, and it's priced at a point to where it's still achievable.
Yeah. What I really, really like, I have several examples of Kogan chips. Obviously, I don't have any of the Hall of Famers, but I've always liked them. I have 5 of the original Colgan's chip tins. I have 2 of the green and 2 of the purple tins. And then I have a third purple tin that has a completely different factory number, which is a little tougher. So they're great presentation pieces, and I think they would just look beautiful with the Wagner sitting right next to it.
And the thing that's funny about this set, when I saw it, it reminded me of a set I used to love, I still love, but it's obscure. And I don't even think SGC grades it. It's the Domino disc set.
Yes.
And I love that set. I've always thought it was just really cool, but
Yeah.
I don't think SGC grades it. And I don't love the tiny PSA holder.
Yeah.
So if that set was in a holder like this, I would love it, because I would actually think about collecting the Domino disc set, because it's just kind of a cool oddball set. But this set definitely, you mentioned that picture of Wagner being on his T206. It's another way to capture that or get that same image in a much cheaper form.
Yeah.
That's pretty awesome. And I think to the point here too, is it seems like it's also, there's quite a few sales in 24 of this card, so it seems like it's something that's available too.
Yeah. I don't. It's not a rare card. It's just a wanted card because of who's on it.
Yeah, for sure. And like I said, as a Pirate fan too, I mean, it's a card I would be interested in as well at some point.
Yeah.
Being a Pittsburgh Pirate fan.
Right. I had the Tris speaker from this set at one point also.
Okay.
Unfortunately, it made it to somebody else in a trade. So,
hey, it happens. But I think the cool thing about it, it's like, the Honus Wagner is sort of a keeper card for sure.
oh yeah, definitely, yeah. If I was able to get the example that I can live with, it wouldn't go anywhere.
Yeah. And then my number one is, not probably as climatic as you think at number one, 54 Aaron, that's on like hundreds of people's want list every year, thousands of people probably. But the thing with me in this card is that it's the last card I need for my Topps run of Hank Aaron, my base run of Hank Aaron cards. I have every Hank Aaron card, from the base top sets, except for this one. So I have 55, 56, 57, 58. I have all of the cards. I need the 58 yellow letter, which I consider that to be a variation, so it's not the base. But I have every Topps and Bowman base card of Hank Aaron except for his rookie. I used to own this card in a PSA 7 a long time ago, before I moved into New York, and I sold it to help pay for my move from New York to Indiana, or from Indiana to New York. So, I had it in a 7. Um, now it's a $15,000 card versus the 3 to 4,000 it was back then. So, looking at what's affordable, obviously, anywhere between a 5 and a 6. I'd love to get a 6, honestly. Just if it was a well-centered 6, I think they're very attractive. They
Yes.
have good color. That's sort of the grade I'd be looking for. But a nice 4 or 5, would also fit the bill if it was perfectly centered and had great color.
Yeah.
So this finishes the set. So this is a big deal. Like, this is a card that would basically allow me to say I have, every base card of Hank Aaron from 1954 to 1976.
Yeah.
And I have that for Clemente. So it'd be my second player collection that would be completed.
Yeah.
So I have the Clemente base set. Now I'd have the Hank Aaron. So from that perspective, it's important, because it
There's
ticks a lot of boxes.
motivation.
It does, and I think it's one of those cards too that, to your point, is you go to a card show, you'll have hundreds of this card, like at a big show like at the National, to pick from. Really, it's about being picky about what you get.
Yeah.
And they're on eBay. I mean, there's lots of ways for this card to come. It's not rare, and but it's expensive. But so making the right choice is the big deal here, for me.
I agree.
But yeah. Have you ever actually owned this card, Doug?
Never. I've never owned it. No.
Wow, that surprises me a little bit because you've owned so many different cards.
I know. I've at one time, I've had several times. I've had chances to either purchase it or trade for it, but it just never happened. I'm not sure why.
Yeah. No, I'm yeah. I am cautiously optimistic it'll happen this year. But it's like one of those things too. It's like when you look at all the other cards I want on this list too, a lot of them are in the same price range. And obviously I can't get them all. So it's that Sophia's choice, of maybe you have to prioritize one over the other. And in all honesty, I should prioritize this card number 1 because of how many boxes it ticks off of my checklist. For me,
that was going to be my question for you. Is it really number 1? Because I said at the beginning that when we made the list, these were my top 10, but in no order.
Right.
So I was wondering if this was your number 1.
I think it has to be. I mean, honestly, for one thing, like, it's not like pulling my teeth to get this, because this is a very important card.
Sure.
Obviously, part of a set I've been building for lots of years. So I would say it's number 1. But again, like, if I went to a show and there was a PSA 4, Mathewson, so that would be like, I'm gonna go back to the pricing here.
Yeah.
7 or 8,000. So let's say it's $6,000, and then I go and say there is a PSA SGC 6 for 7. So there's like $1,000 difference between a T3 Mathewson and a Hank Aaron.
That'd be a tough.
That Mathewson was perfectly like a huge, let's say, a great example. I'd have a hard time, making that choice, honestly.
Yeah, you would. Yeah.
So it would be tough. I'd say, like I said before, that Mathewson, I would be happy if that was the only card I picked up on this list.
Yeah.
If I had to go another year waiting for my Hank Aaron. But again, if the perfect Hank Aaron came up, like a couple years ago, I had a chance at a 6.5 that was perfectly centered. And that's the kind of card of it, perfectly centered with great color. 6 or 7 came up, or 6.5.
Right.
And I had the money. I think, I would probably have to do it just to say I've got the set done. Right. But yeah, like, it's a tough thing when you're at the National, when you have 5 or 6 options, and you've got 4 or 5 cards that you can get on your list. Yeah, it becomes harder.
Yeah,
for sure. But plus, it's a fun thing to think
really
about.
Nice. It would really look nice behind you with your Clemente.
Yeah, with all my Clementes. Yeah. because I got my Aaron's and my mazes right next to it, and so I'm a lot closer. Like I said, my maze collection, I'm 5 or 6 cards away, but Aaron is down to 1. So
Right.
I can get it. I can get it done this year if I focus and don't get distracted. I think I can get it done this year. So
Yep. Yep.
well, Doug, I know it's been a little bit of a long video, but I appreciate the time with you, and I love going through everything that you're looking for. It also helps me because I know now what to kind of keep my eyes open, and
Yeah, definitely.
and if I see something out here in the Northeast, I'll give you the first ring because or let people know, like, because I talk to some dealers here and say, hey, here's some stuff my buddy's looking for. Can you help me out? And maybe we'll get a hit.
Yeah, that would be fun. That would be fun.
So, all right, Doug. Well, hey, I'll see you next time. I appreciate the time and hope you guys had fun. And next video, we'll be talking about maybe some cool pickups, maybe some cards on this list that we got at the upcoming Heritage or REA auction. So, see you next time.
Thanks, Jason.